The United States Congress was intended by the founders of the Constitution to be the people's branch. The members of Congress are directly elected by the people to make decisions on our behalf, which is why we have a representative or Republican system of government. It's a representative democracy. As we talk about Congress, we're going to examine the role of the national legislature in U.S. politics. We look at the basic structure of Congress, its makeup, the qualifications to become a member of Congress, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. We'll discuss the process by which a bill becomes law. And then we look at the main functions of Congress: making legislation, participating in legislative oversight, and casework. Article 1 of the Constitution creates the national legislature. We call both the House of Representatives and the Senate the U.S. Congress. We have a bicameral, which means two-house legislature. The framers of the Constitution did this for two important reasons. The House of Representatives, they designed to be the people's branch, the branch or the part of the national government that's most closely tied to the people. The Senate, on the other hand, was designed to be the upper legislative house, a little bit more removed from the people and not subject to the same kind of political pressures that people in the House could be, could have. Okay, so the terms of Congress. Congress goes in session for 2 years. We are currently in the second half of the most recent legislative session, so we're in the second session of the 113th Congress. The 113th Congress started in January of 2012, and it will end in December of 2013. All of these sessions have been numbered consecutively since the Constitution was ratified. If necessary, the President or members of Congress could call a special session of the legislature. The House of Representatives is based on the representation is based on the population of each state. It is currently fixed at 435 members. That is not a number that is referenced in the Constitution. It is just the number the House of Representatives has been satisfied to maintain for the last 40-ish years. Each member of the House serves a 2-year term, and then all 435 members are up for re-election every 2 years. All of the members of the House are elected from single-member districts. So that means in Texas we have 36 representatives to the House of Representatives in the national legislature because of our population, and we have 36 different congressional districts. So one member of the House represents one congressional district. The House of Representatives is also, according to Article 1 of the Constitution, in charge of reapportionment. Article 1 in the Constitution requires that a census or counting of the population be conducted by the national government every 10 years. Once the census is complete, Congress reapportions or redistributes the seats in the House of Representatives among the states based on their population growth, population remaining the same, or population shrinking. So the House of Representatives and the National Congress and the Senate decide how many representatives each state gets to the House. The state legislatures or the state legislative bodies redraw the congressional districts if there are members gained or lost. So in 2010, the state of Texas gained 4 additional seats in the House of Representatives. So this Texas legislature redrew congressional districts to add the additional 4 members of Congress districts. Gerrymandering is illegal. It's named after Elderbridge Gerry, who first started trying to draw representative districts to his particular party's advantage in the 1790s, very shortly after the Constitution was ratified. But gerrymandering is illegal, and it's considered when one person or a state legislature or a political party draws congressional districts specifically to the advantage of the dominant political party. It is illegal, but it is also very hard to prove. Wesbury versus Sanders is a 1964 Supreme Court case where the Supreme Court ruled, or they created the legal precedent, that all congressional districts must represent roughly the same number of people. This was a way that political parties prior to this Supreme Court case at the state level sort of diluted the vote of the minor party. So if a state was predominantly Democratic, then the Democratic legislature would draw one tiny congressional district that had a majority of, let's say, Democratic voters, and they would draw another very large congressional district that had lots of maybe Republican voters in it, but they would make sure that there were more Democratic voters than the Republicans. So the very small Democratic congressional district might have had 40,000 people, and the very large congressional district that ended up with a majority of Democratic voters might have had 1 million people. What happened is that minority parties and minority groups then had very diluted influence in politics. The Senate is the upper legislative house in the United States Congress. It has 100 senators, which will not change unless we add another state to the United States. Each senator serves and is elected for and serves a 6-year term, but the framers of the Constitution did not want all of the Senate to be brand new all at once, and so they staggered the re-election of all senators so that only about 1/3 or 33 senators are up for re-election every 2 years. Senators represent their entire state, so everyone in the Senate, everyone in their home state gets to vote in the Senate race, whereas in races for the House of Representatives, only people who live in each candidate's or each representative's congressional district are allowed to vote for members of the House. So what are some of the benefits of being a member of Congress, and how much do these people get paid? It's interesting to note that Congress basically sets their own pay scale. They get to vote for their own salary, and currently it is about $165,000 a year. Federal government or national government employees, including members of the House of Representatives and the Senate, get what's called a cost of living adjustment, and so these numbers might be off. The cost of living adjustment gives federal government employees about a 3% increase in their salary to keep up with the rate of inflation every year. So these numbers might be just a little bit off, but they're somewhere around the numbers that I'm giving to you. The Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate is also the Vice President of the United States, make just over $212,000 each year. And those members of the Senate that are voted to be the majority party, which in this case is Democrat Harry Reid, is the majority party leader in the Senate, and Mitch McConnell, a Republican from Kentucky, is the minority leader in the Senate. They earn about $185,000 a year. The House of Representatives, majority and minority leaders get about $183,000 a year. However, the 27th Amendment to the Constitution prevents elected officials from getting a pay raise until after they have been reelected. So this is intended to prevent Congress from giving themselves significant pay raises with the idea that they would not get reelected by the voters if they were to give themselves obnoxious pay raises. But considering the average American makes somewhere between $45,000 and $48,000 a year, they still have nice compensation in their salaries. Besides just having a decent salary, or really better than decent salary, there are other benefits that members of Congress are given. One is called a franking privilege. This is when you get postcards or mailings to your house from perhaps your representative or from your senator. Those mailings were paid for by taxpayer dollars. The members of the National Congress don't pay for them. When they send out official mailings to their constituents or people living in the area which they represent, they get to do that for free. They also get tax deductions for 2 homes. which allows them to have a house in the Washington, D.C. area if they choose, and also a house in their home state or home district. They are given money to help cover travel costs back and forth from Washington, D.C. to where they live. They are provided with insurance and health care that is excellent. It is not, none of the members of Congress are subject to the Affordable Health Care Act, which is also known as Obamacare. They are given money, not of their own cost, but the national government funds for them to pay for offices in their home states or home congressional districts, and staff members to work for them both in Washington, D.C. and back at home. And they're also given a very nice pension plan, which is a retirement account. And the longer they stay in office, either in the House or the Senate, the more money they earn. There are some punishments that members of Congress can receive if they violate their code of conduct for serving in the House or the Senate. The House of Representatives can vote to reprimand, fine, or expel members. A reprimand is basically just when a member of the House is called out and told they're behaving badly. A fine would just be basically like a ticket or a fee that they have to pay for bad behavior. And if a member of the House of Representatives did something extraordinarily awful, they could be expelled, which means that the other members of the House could vote to kick them out completely. The Senate has punishments as well. One is to denounce. It sort of functions the exact same way as a reprimand. There aren't any other real consequences for a denouncement in the Senate other than you get called out by other members of your chamber. You could also be fined or expelled, same way. In both the House and the Senate, in order for either legislative body to expel a member, it requires a 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate. The Constitution in Article 1 also creates some privileges for members of the National Congress. They are free from arrest during sessions of Congress for civil offenses. So members of Congress are also excluded or protected from libel or slander lawsuits for statements that are made in Congress doing congressional work. Just as a brief reminder, libel and slander are malicious words that are either spoken or printed about someone else. So the current leadership of the 113th session of the United States Congress in year 2. Speaker of the House of Representatives is John Boehner, a Republican from Ohio. The Republican Party has the greatest number of representatives in the House, so they are considered to be the majority party. The majority party leader is Representative Eric Cantor, a Republican from Virginia, and the minority party leader would be Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat from California. An interesting thing to note about Nancy Pelosi is that in 2007, she became the first woman or female Speaker of the House. In the Senate, the President of the Senate is the United States Vice President Joe Biden, who is a Democrat from Delaware. The Vice President is very rarely in the Senate. The Majority Leader is really the person sort of in charge for the majority party in the Senate, and that would be Harry Reid, a Democrat from Nevada. And the Minority Leader is currently Mitch McConnell, a Republican from Kentucky. The local representatives whose area is covered by the area that is that makes up part of Duncanville ISD would be either Congressional District 24, Republican Kenny Marchant, who was first elected in 2004, or Congressional District 30, Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson, who is a Democrat and was first elected to the House in 1992. The current senators for the state of Texas are John Cornyn, who was first elected in 2002, and then we recently, as in last year, elected Ted Cruz, a Republican, and also sort of a new face to national politics.